Good morning, Patrick, and thank you for joining me on the Sami Parvez show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. And how are you doing this morning?
I'm pretty good. I just finished a candidates debate yesterday
Mm-hmm.
where a couple of candidates didn't show up. The incumbent didn't show up from the Progressive Conservatives, as well as the alternative conservative choice that claim that they're the only conservative choice. They didn't show up either. So the New Blue and Jim Carrey Halios decided to not attend, which is unfortunate because I was kind of hoping that all the candidates would be there. But Mike Harris not showing up is no surprise because I think people in the riding of Kitchener-Conestoga are used to that by now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. And can you please tell the audience or your like the residents of Kitchener Conestoga, why are you running in this election?
I'm running because I think there needs to be an improvement in the public service that is serving the community. We're seeing incompetence and unethical practices at all levels of government, and I want to make a difference. I want to contribute. I'm able to contribute to my community full time because I'm retired, and I know Randy Hillier and Derek Sloan, who are the leaders of the Ontario Party. I respect them very much. And after seeing the platform that the Ontario Party is representing and promoting, I said, I want to be involved with that because that is exciting to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as you mentioned about Derek Sloan and the Ontario Party, can you please describe, like, you are the first candidates for Ontario Party who is appearing on the Sami Parvez show, and could you please tell more about Ontario Party? What is it all about?
I'm honored to be on your show, Sami, the first Ontario Party candidate on your show.
Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
the best way for your viewers to get an understanding of our platform is to visit ontarioparty.ca, where the whole platform is laid out. But I think if I could just highlight some of the items, is that we are pushing for tax cuts for the citizens of Ontario. You know, Sami, Ontario is a very, very rich province. You
Yeah,
know, just I was looking at some of the stats. Ontario produces 43% of the gold and copper produced in Canada.
wow.
Ontario produces over 55% of the nickel and cobalt in Canada. And Ontario produces over 81% of the platinum produced in Canada. We are a very rich province. However, when you look at the amount of waste that is happening and federal overreach that is dictating policy, and Doug Ford going along with those policies and wasting money on projects that don't benefit the citizens. You know, Sami, in Quebec, there's a very sovereign mindset. The Quebecers want to look out for their own culture. They want to look out for their own province.
Yep.
And they have lower taxes than Ontario citizens. They have lower hydro rates than Ontario citizens. Quebec it gets the most transfer payments from the rest of Canada. And, and the Ontario Party wants to introduce a type of sovereign mindset. Now, not sovereign in the sense that we want to separate or something like that. No, we want to strengthen Ontario. It is a rich province, and we believe that the citizens of Ontario deserve better. You know, there's many ways that through revenue generation that the province could compensate municipalities to encourage them to lower residential property tax rates. I had a gentleman mention today that when he moved into his property, it was $1,200 a year for his residential taxes, and now it's up to 4,000. So, you know, that was over the span of about 10 years. Now, in the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years, if it's going to double. You know, you'll be paying $1,000 a month in residential property tax. Who's going to be able to afford that? So the Ontario Party wants to introduce a huge reduction in residential property tax, especially for seniors, people over the age of 65. You can remember 65 and 65. We want to reduce by 65% the residential property tax rates for seniors over the age of 65. And we believe that could easily be supported by the wealth of Ontario. And we have different ideas on how to increase revenue generation to cover that as well.
Yep. Okay. So like, but as you mentioned, like we are rich province, like we have great resources, like everything we have. But despite that, if you look around, like your neighbor or like some areas, like it seems like we are living in a third world country where people are homeless, begging on the streets, and the crime, like people just do criminal activity to make some money. But despite that, but I need to ask you, like there are some like party are supporting for uh, uh income support, like I don't know, like I sorry, I forgot what that is called, but they are supporting a mandatory income or income support, something like that. Sorry, it is not coming in my mind,
Okay,
but
I
do you,
think
do you
what you're referring to is called universal basic income that
Yeah,
some of the
universal
parties are
basic income.
promoting.
Yeah, that is. So do you support a universal basic income?
Well, we don't support universal basic income per se. What we do support is examining the welfare and compensation systems that are already in place, whether it's ODSP or welfare or different support programs, and making sure that there's no abuse of those systems, and making sure that those support are indexed and at a level that allows people to live respectfully. We want to increase the low-cost housing for people. The question that you mentioned involves a lot of factors. You mentioned crime, you mentioned homelessness,
Yep.
and there's many different areas that these societal problems can be addressed by sound provincial management.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, we want to fight against crime. We want to look at how we can address this whole fentanyl problem.
Yep.
We want to introduce an immediate reduction in the PST. So the current harmonized sales tax is 13%. We want to reduce the provincial portion by 3%, so that it would be 5 and 5, 5 for the province, 5 for federal. You would end up having a 10% tax on your purchases instead of 13%. It'd be easier to calculate and would have an immediate effect on affordability for citizens. But that's only one area. The idea of allowing less red tape for people if
Mm-hmm.
they want to make these what do they call them, tiny homes, or have in-law suites or nanny suites, or giving more living space within the homes, and especially in urban areas. We would make it easier for people to make duplexes and fourplexes to expand the number of homes. Now, this question that you ask is multidimensional because it also touches on the concept of immigration. If you have so many people coming into the country,
Yep.
you're going to have, you're going to run out of place for them to live,
Mm-hmm.
contributing to homelessness as well. We want to find a way to coordinate the immigration numbers to the rate of unemployment. So if unemployment drops, we would be willing to have more people come in. If unemployment is above a certain level, we would want to cut those immigration numbers. So this is a very difficult question. It is dealing with affordability, it's
Mm-hmm.
dealing with housing, it's dealing with immigration, and it's dealing with crime. So all these areas require competent, ethical government service to
Mm-hmm.
to to address these problems. It's not simple problems, and if we let them get out of control, a lot of times the cause can be related back to bad government management. The government is not doing their job. They're dropping the ball. They're wasting money, or they're ignoring these societal problems. And when you have rampant, excessive government spending on projects and issues that don't benefit the citizens, you're going to end up with inflation, and you're going to end up with these type of societal problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. And we also know, like during COVID time, like when federal government start like giving money to everyone, like everyone just exploited the system and no one was available to work. But at this time, like we see like unemployment is on the peak. Like it has been like 7.2%, particularly in Kitchener, like the unemployment rate is. Uh, but
And
let's like, yeah,
And if I
go
could
ahead.
just add on that note, Sami, both the NDP and Liberal promote UBI. They say we're going to have the universal basic income.
Mhm.
The Ontario Party is also open if the budgets and if the revenues can support it, and if there is a referendum, we would be open to having referendums on these difficult topics where the population is divided. A lot of people think it's going to be bad. A lot of people think it's good. We would be open to having a referendum on that issue. And if enough people want to have it, we would work as hard as any other party to implement such a system to ensure a living wage for people so that they can have dignity, self-respect, and be able to afford their housing and groceries and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also there is another issue, like particularly which is not being highlighted, wage theft. Like this, it seems like it is a common practice in Ontario. So I lived like 7 years in Saskatchewan. I never heard a word wage theft when I came here. So it seems like it is happening. Like though some people are working on cash, they are not getting paid. Like recently, I heard from somebody told me like from a restaurant, like people are working, it is like just they are not paying on time, but it takes like months to pay them. And even though there are some employers who does not, who don't pay, like simplify supply chain solution, or there is Dutchies. I believe you heard that one. There was a protest. Like it means some people they owe like from 3,000 to 7,000, 10,000. They are not paying to their contractors. Even though I brought it up to the premier, to my local MPP, but it seems like they are doing nothing. Like they say like we are increasing the fines. Fine does not make any sense. Like it seems like, yeah, they are not going to pay to their employees. Like they are $10,000, they will pay to you for fines. That's it. Like we need like harsher penalties. Like they should be lifetime ban for doing business in Ontario or in Canada. But we don't have it. Like we have laws, we have regulation, books are full with everything, but in practically they are not being implemented. Even though I spoke with Ministry of Labor one officer who said we are tired with our rules and regulation. Like everything done by the lawmaker, they have to do it. And like it means they cannot force someone to give their money. They cannot push employers to pay workers. It all depends on the lawmakers. But I need to ask you, what would you do differently if you get elected as an MPP to ensure this should not happen again?
Sammy, you should be running for the Ontario Party. This is exactly
Thank
what we
you.
need. We need people to be fed up with this pandering to the corporations that are already making billions of dollars. Doug
Mhm.
Ford and the progressive conservative government have put the corporate interest first. So they turn a blind eye to these type of injustices that are happening. And you have these companies that are ripping off, whether they're large grocery chains or industrial companies or whoever, doesn't matter, that are taking advantage of the employees, either not paying them or doing funny business with them, whether keeping back part of their wages or even training them and not paying them for their training time and saying,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
it didn't work out. Someone will go work for 2 weeks, a month, maybe even 3 months and say, sorry, your training didn't work out, and then just leave them high and dry. Meanwhile, the person that doesn't even get a paycheck and they're starving. It is wicked what is happening. That is unethical practices by the corporations. And the province should crack down heavily on that. Like you said, a little fine, a slap on the wrist, what's that going to do? So they must be, and I don't want to make any direct accusations, but the provincial government must be being incentivized to turn a blind eye somewhere, if you know what I mean, right?
Yep,
There are
yep.
things that are done in the back room. We don't know what those guys are doing. This is why we want to fight for transparency and ethical government. We had a similar situation here where large corporations in our riding, there was 770 acres that large corporations had their eye on and wanted to get it. And the province kept everything secret. They even had the regional chair agree to this confidentiality agreement. But once the public spoke out, people like yourself, when people hear of an injustice and they start to speak out, the corporations run like they're trying to hide under the rocks, and they
Hmm.
deny everything and say, oh, no, we never intended to do that. We never intended to expropriate the land, but they passed the buck from one to the other. You
Yep.
know that they're not telling the truth, but this is where there is strength in people. If enough people will speak up like yourself and say, we cannot have this. We have to have open transparency from the start. These are the rules of employment. These are the labor laws. If the corporation doesn't follow these labor laws, there should be very, very serious repercussions for those corporations. And when they're hurt in the pocketbook, that's when they react. When they get bad publicity, they know it's going to hurt their pocketbook. That's when they react.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like you mentioned about the training, like they don't pay. Yeah, I heard. Like I'm still working for my story. I'm still collecting more sources. Like to speaking more worker. What happened? So like someone told me like there are like some employer who don't pay for the training. So it is also violation of labor law, but we
Wicked.
have
It
a
should never happen. It is
yeah.
wicked. It's bad.
Mhm. Yeah, but we have a government who does not care. Like Doug Ford said that he's a businessman, not a politician. It means businessmen always care about their businesses, not employers or employees or workers. Like this is how it works. Okay, so let's jump to another topic with respect to we earlier you also brought up the housing crisis. Like we have homelessness and housing crisis in Ontario and also like in Kitchener too. So what should be done to make sure that we have enough houses, and how should we increase the threshold that this much houses should be built within this time frame?
Well, it's like I mentioned, we have a need for more um, subsidized housing. In my own community, there's a subsidized housing, very nice two-bedroom apartment places to live, beautiful community, wonderful people there, and the waiting list is over 4 years. And the lawyer from the debate mentioned to me that some areas in Ontario, and even in our riding, the wait is 10 years, which is just, you might as well say you're never going to get in there until people die 10 years down the road because there's just no spaces for them.
Yep.
Again, it comes down to Ontario is a very prosperous province. How much money could be done to be directed to building more subsidized housing that can be supported by resources, by eliminating trade barriers between the provinces, by having better trade relations with the United States. We have unlimited water supply from in Ontario. There's so many ways that the province is making revenue, can continue to make revenue, and support social programs like this to support these people that are down and out. They're not always involved in drugs. There is that they're they have that bad reputation of these tent cities and so on. But a lot of these people are ethical, hardworking, righteous people that just are on hard times. And if there was more money channeled into subsidized housing, it would allow people to have dignity and self-respect and a place to stay that doesn't decimate their monthly stipend that they have. They a lot of people making $1,300 a month, and you to rent an apartment, it's more than that. So where's your money for food? So if you have a subsidized housing where it's indexed to their monthly revenue, sometimes they'll have pensions or small pensions or whatever they have. It would be reflective of that, so they might only have to pay a couple $100 or $200 or $300, $400 for their monthly rental, and that would contribute, of course, to the overall cost of maintaining the property for property management and so on. Sami, in my own community, there's a subsidized housing development, and last summer I saw the construction crews coming in. And I thought, wow, I guess they're expanding the parking lot because there's not much parking there. They ripped out an entire retaining wall, and there was nothing wrong with the retaining wall. Mm-hmm. And they ripped it out, replaced it with these huge blocks, repaved everything because they had to rip up all the paving. And that project did absolutely nothing for that community of assisted housing. Now, you mean to tell me how much was that contract worth? It had to have been in close to seven figures. It was a month-long project with the heavy equipment, and it did absolutely nothing to improve the living standards of that community. And that is a direct example of complete government waste and incompetence that should never happen. There was nothing wrong with that retaining wall. And at first, like I said, I thought they were going to expand the parking lot. I thought, well, that's a good use of government funds. But no, something happened there. There was either a budget surplus at the end of the year. It said, well, we got to spend this budget. Let's rip out this wall and replace it. A total make work project. There was like a dozen construction guys on site most days because I have to drive by that area often. And, you know, this is the kind of thing that shouldn't be happening. There's either incompetence or unethical practices or a combination of both that is preventing an expansion in the number of subsidized housing available to people that are on hard times. And there are so many people on hard times today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are right, Patrick. It is hard to see, like they are just exploiting the taxpayers' money. Some elected politicians, I would say majority of them, love to do it. And but you mentioned, we need to get rid of those red tapes. So can you please explain like how to do it, to get rid of those red tapes and making sure that we must have more houses to be built? So is bureaucracy is the problem, or is the government itself is the problem with this? I just need to give you my own example. I'm living in my father's house basement because I can't afford a house, like to purchase a house. Like, I don't think in my lifetime I could be like capable for doing it, like, because everything is expensive.
Um, Housing is a big issue. The Ontario Party wants to make housing affordable again. And as I mentioned, Sami, the idea of allowing easier for people to build these accessory homes or converting into duplex and triplex, it's not an easy process to reduce red tape for these things. But if the problem is tackled with competence, there's no reason why that we cannot increase the availability of homes for people on a small scale basis. And when the overall prosperity of the province increases, it'll benefit the population. It's a large macro issue, and these small individual problems need to be addressed on an individual basis. But when you look at the overall big picture, if you increase the prosperity of the province and cut out excessive wasteful spending and bring responsibility and a public service that is accountable for the needs of the citizens, these type of things should eventually get addressed, because there's something missing between the provincial leadership and the individual citizen that has these type of concerns. As you said, you had a serious concern with unethical labor practices, and when you try and bring it up, you get a blind ear. We have a incumbent in our riding that is never around, but then once they call an election, he takes phone calls again. And I've heard it from many different people that during his tenure over the last number of years, he's unavailable to even listen to those concerns. So if your local representative of government is not willing to listen, saying, hey, I'm living in my parents' basement, I can't afford, how is that ever going to be escalated to have somebody appointed to direct that head on? Okay, we have to have this, let's have a target, let's plan it. There's urban planners that get paid to do these things, that work for the government, and different positions that are specialists in this area. But if those concerns are never even able to be communicated, that the political leadership is turning a blind eye and not genuinely serving people with their heart and soul, because that is what they are elected to do. They are elected to be a servant of the people with everything that they have. And if they're not, if they're neglecting that type of commitment to their position, then they should not get reelected. They should not be voted for. They should be booted out of parliament. In fact, we have one of the Ontario Party platform issues that you'll see on our website is that we'd like to have an option to recall members of provincial parliament if they're not doing their duty. which
Yep.
doesn't exist now because the incumbent would probably be recalled in a heartbeat because he got elected, and then it's just like, okay, well, I guess I can just go to Queens Park
Yep.
and spend time with Doug Ford and ignore the people.
Hmm.
That's that. Then you're going to have not just the problem that you mentioned about housing. You're going to have many other different problems
Yep.
because your house is falling down around your ears politically, and the needs of the people not being met.
Hmm. Yeah, so like they are they they got elected not being servant but the ruler, like that's why I have decided I would decline my ballot because I know like this PC government would get re-elected with respect to the polls are showing, and our representative, my local representative is green, she's going to re-elected, but at the meantime when I needed, they did not answer my call, like I did not receive the response what I needed. Like there could be many folks like that, but if every Ontarian get out and vote on February 27th, maybe we would see a change. Yeah. So I need to ask you one thing, like with respect to vote, but we always see the threshold is very low. Like I think less than half of Ontarians get out and vote, and also in Canadians too across the a nation. So, what should be done to encourage Ontarians or Canadians to get out to vote on the election day?
This is a good question. In the riding of Kitchener-Conestoga, a population of 100,000, there's about 70,000 registered voters. And in the last election, only about half voted.
Yep.
And I think that Doug Ford is taking advantage of this. He knows that people are reluctant to vote. And so he calls a snap election with very little notice in the dead of winter, one of the worst winters we've ever had in recent memory. And there's going to be very low voter turnout. So he's hoping to just kind of sneak himself back in again for another term. Um, you know, it's hard to say because people have lost so much confidence, and they've been basically politically abused for so long. They think that it's hopeless. They've kind of given up. They say, "Oh well, what's the use anyway? They're all corrupt. What's the use anyway? My vote doesn't matter." When in fact, each person's vote is very powerful, is very important, because you're basically representing multiple people. You're representing the people that sit at home and don't vote by your vote. So your vote has a lot of power to it. As far as incentivizing people, I don't know. I mean, it's going to reach a point where it's going to be like COVID and you offer people a donut to come out and vote. I mean, it's ridiculous. People think, oh, what's the point? Someone else will vote for me. But all we can do is remind people that it is a type of civic duty. It's I know it's difficult and it's cold and all that kind of stuff. The polls are open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on February 27th, and it is forcing people to get out. Now there are shut-ins and they have options for them to people will actually visit them and take their vote. And there's no reason that anybody technically can't vote. And so all we can do is encourage people and tell them that there is hope. That there are alternatives out there to the mainstream. The mainstream media only wants to cover the big three or big four
Yeah.
parties, and so we need to let people know, there are options. There are other people out there that care about what's going on, like yourself. I hope you do go into politics one day because I think you would be a great asset to the population with the way that I've only known you for a short time, but I can tell that you have a passion for what's right, and that's what people need. People need representation of people that have a servant's heart, that have a passion for what's right, good ethics, and will fight hard. It takes a certain type of combination to be a politician. You have to have a thick skin because there's going to be people that hate you, right? No matter what. But if your heart is true and genuine, and you do want to help the people of your province or your community or your town or the people on your street, then you have what it takes to contribute. You have what it takes to be a leader. And if enough people recognize that, it only takes about 15,000 people in this riding to put a person in power. But a lot of people, for their own particular beliefs, sometimes it's a religious belief, sometimes it's an ideology that they hold. And I respect that. They don't want to vote under any circumstances. There's a lot of people that fit into that category. But if enough people will get off the couch and say, you know what, I'm going to make sure that I vote this election. This is important to me. Provincial issues are becoming more important. As the population grows, the provincial issues becomes more and more important because that level of government is covering a ton of areas that affect people on a daily basis, and then of course the federal on top of that. But it's a difficult question, Sammy, and I don't have a clear answer for you because we got to light a fire under people and just say, hey, your vote is valuable.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I appreciated the remarks you gave me, like the my passionate. Okay, so you also like talked about mainstream media. I always like need to like ask like my audience too. Like I heard like recently I think CBC was doing interviews with like candidates. They are inviting just the four top party candidate like progressive, conservative, NDP, liberals, and Greens, but they avoided other candidate. Like it seems like they don't give a damn about the similar parties or like independent candidate like yourself. So I always been vocal about like if you get out like vote for similar parties or vote for independent candidate, like they would a better representative you represent you. Could you please tell me like have you been interviewed before this one by anyone?
I haven't been contacted. I saw a recent CBC interview again that covered the top parties, and then they mentioned us in a little tiny tagline. Said there's also Patrick Doucette, and he's with the Ontario Party. But I think that's part of the current political landscape because the mainstream media are more comfortable with the large incumbent parties. And again, I don't want to make any accusations, but who knows what connections there are between government and media. We know that the CBC is funded by the federal government, and who knows what the motivations are for the coverage they have. I know I've seen it also in locally where there's a bias. You can see the bias in the news coverage, and you say, well, obviously that particular reporter or that person is a supporter of this
Party.
party. And that's going to be very hard to get away from. But there are shining lights out there. There's an independent candidate. I think her name is Bobby Brady, and she's, I think, with Norfolk. And she's an independent, and she's the incumbent. She was elected last time. I think she'll probably get elected again because why? Because she's ethical, diligent. She cares about her riding. She cares about the citizens around her, and they put their faith in her, and they know that she is going to be a strong voice for them in Queen's Park on a provincial level. And so there are shining lights where the independent or the smaller parties. Ontario Party has only been around since 2018, and it is a conservative party. And this is the other thing is that because we don't have access to mainstream media for the most part, it is difficult to educate people on the idea of what a conservative party is. People have different ideas about what it means, and they think that the progressive conservatives are a conservative party, same as the on a federal level, and it's like night and day. It's totally different, and so there is a lot of groundwork that needs to be done at a grassroots level to let people know about our platform, about how we fit into the political landscape, of how we want the best for all citizens, and it's not some kind of polarizing party. And which can happen, even if you look up definitions on Wikipedia, they'll say things like, "Oh, it's a far right," or "It's this or that." And the other thing, which is just nonsense. But the Ontario Party is a party that wants to increase the prosperity for all the citizens of Ontario. Full
Mhm.
stop.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's why like I noticed like this thing like mainstream media don't give any coverage to the similar parties, neither to independent candidates. So I tried to like I covered like BC election. There were couple of by election in federal level, and then there was the Saskatchewan election. So whenever I contacted like to these mainstream parties or major party, they denied my request. So I have decided I'm not going to invite them. I'm going to invite only smaller parties and independent candidate to give them a voice. So I'm trying to get as many candidates as I can on my podcast. And I also need to ask you, like, as you are, I always ask this question to every political candidate who appear on the Sami Parvez show. So can you please comment as you are running right now as an MPP for Ontario Party? As you, so if you get elected, would you commit that you will appear again on the Sami Parvez show?
Absolutely. And
Thank
this is interesting that you mentioned this, that you invite the incumbent, or invite the larger parties, but if that's not, it doesn't help them. They say, oh well, I don't want to participate.
yeah,
The incumbent in my riding of Kitchener Conestoga, Mike Harris,
yeah.
he waited until an hour or two. It was a very short period of time. The moderator mentioned it last night. I forget whether it was 1 or 2 hours. They had over a week's notice that they were going to have this candidate debate. I was there, and uh, Jim Carriolis from the New Blue wasn't there. He didn't show up, but
Wow.
Mike Harris called in maybe an hour or two before and said, "Oh, I can't make it." Maybe he
Mhm.
wanted to watch a hockey game. I don't know, but this type of thing. What's in it for me? Kind of thing. No, no. If I get elected, Sammy, you'll be the first to know. I'll be back on your show anytime.
Thank
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I appreciate. Yeah, like I contacted them. Like they just denied or don't respond my emails. Even though my own local MPP or MP from both are from Greens, they one denied my request.
You,
So
you invited the other candidates and they didn't want to come on your show.
no, like from my green, no, like they don't. Like I contacted them when they are in office, like not in recent election time, but before election. So
I
they
see.
denied my request, and
I see.
like Mike Morris, who is MP, he did not respond. So I said, okay, if you don't want to come up, I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to request you again. Like
There
that's
you
it.
go. Yeah, yeah. There you go.
So
No,
I need to show my.
I'm all ears. I like to have an avenue where I can reach more people. So you have a platform. I'm always available. You have my direct contact information. You can contact me anytime.
Thank you very much, sir. And sir, just sorry, we went over time. What's your message to Kitchener-Conestoga residents? Why should they vote for you?
Why should the residents of Kitchener Conestoga vote for me? They should vote for me because we have the platform that is the strongest and most aggressive platform for cutting taxes. That would be a direct benefit to them. Cutting taxes on the provincial PST. We want to help people under the age of 30. We want to eliminate provincial tax altogether for people under the age of 30 that are earning less than $200,000 a year. That covers the 99% of the people in under the age of 30, or close to that, under the age of 30. And we want to attack taxes for residential property tax. That's a huge issue for people. If they care about having an immediate benefit for their bottom line, they should vote for me. They should vote for me if they want somebody that is aggressive, that's willing to stand up for what's right and not afraid to speak against the corporatocracy and push for transparency in any relationships, whether it's land grabs or labor issues, any relationship with corporate interests. They're going to have an experienced, aggressive person standing on their side. That's what you want to have. You want to have someone who's strong and ethical on your side. You don't want somebody who's not willing to stand up for you or show up for you, for that matter, as we've seen so many times during this election cycle and during this campaign cycle. And so I think if the viewers of this channel or the citizens of Ontario or the citizens in my communities that I love, the Kitchener-Conestoga riding, if they go to ontarioparty.ca and read through the vision that we have for a more prosperous Ontario, they will see that I'm the best choice for them, and they will vote for me in a heartbeat.
Okay. So is there anything else you would like to share or add, like I did not ask you?
No, I just want to thank you again, Sammy, for the opportunity to come here. If there's any other questions that come up and I see them in the comments of your channel, I will try my best to address them, and I'll drop in onto your channel. I've subscribed to your channel, and I encourage the viewers to do so as well. And I'll keep my eyes and ears open. But I think we covered a lot of bases today. So thank you again, Sammy. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, my pleasure, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Patrick, for joining me on the Sami Parvez show, and wishing you very best on your election campaign, and looking forward to seeing you the next MPP for Kitchener Conestoga.
And
And once again, thank you, sir, and enjoy your rest of day, and wish you best of luck. Hopefully, seeing you again on the Sami Parvez show.
amen. Agreed. Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you, sir, so much. Thank you.